Well, the whole world has gone crazy, but here I still am, doing my thing. In times like this, I turn to music to get me through the craziness. So, in today's episode, I'm going to discuss my musical influences. Like television, music did not have much sway over my life. Well, it did in a way, but in a way, it also didn't. Certainly, various kinds of music have affected my mood at different times, and many have also been affected by my mood. A lot of the music I listened to growing up were invariably inextricably linked to my television and gaming habits. So I'll look at it from the very beginning. Well, I didn't have many musical influences in my early youth. I was constantly surrounded by music, as I mentioned previously, but nothing that piqued my interest. Maybe I listened to nursery rhymes and lullabies early on. Some of the earliest music I remember was from computer games. I particularly liked the Space Quest theme song. Also, King's Quest, Thexter, and Frogger. And while I enjoyed the music when I played these games, the music wasn't the end all be all at that point. I also loved cartoon theme songs, as I mentioned previously in my TV episode. So many beautiful songs adorned the various shows I watched. The themes of the GoBots, Pole Position, and Bionic 6 in particular. Once again, not terribly influential, just momentarily enjoyable. Besides TV and games, I didn't have very many musical influences at that time. One must understand the cultural and technological landscape of the time. There was no internet back then, computers were just coming into their own, and there was only about 30 channels on the television, of which two, MTV and VH1, were dedicated solely to music. My older brother dominated the main television in our home, so that in 1987, or maybe as early as 1986, I would come home from school to the sound of Skid Row blasting. This continued until about 1988. Well, if it wasn't Skid Row, it was Aerosmith. After that, I think my older brother started dating, as he was certainly a teenager by that time, and was hardly ever home since then. Once in a while, I caught a music video on MTV, but few and far between. It was the time of the 80s pop scene where a slew of new pop princesses and boy bands made the scene. Well, I wasn't at all interested in New Kids on the Block, but I did listen to some pop princesses. I wasn't altogether interested in Madonna. I guess I liked Debbie Gibson, one of my earliest crushes, though not her rival, Tiffany, and to a lesser extent, Paula Abdul. Will Smith, aka DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, had a minor sway over my mood. And that's about it, really. So in 1989, I got the Nintendo, and I enjoyed music from that system, particularly the theme songs from Wizards and Warriors and Mega Man 3, as they really got me pumped to play. I still think Mega Man 3's theme is one of the most beautifully written pieces of music of all time, though it only has a moderate effect to my mood now. As far as television related music, well, I was quite interested in Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, and I liked that theme song as well. Much more so than DuckTales, which, to be fair, was a much more lively song. I also liked the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme and Ghostbusters. As far as live action, there wasn't too much, but Nickelodeon's Land of the Lost theme was also enjoyable. Once again, I didn't listen to much music or watch many music videos, but I did catch a few on MTV. I remember Milli Vanilli, which had been mentioned in the Super Mario Bros. Cartoon before their scandal, but I think they were more popular because of their dancing. Also, Salt and Pepper for the interesting style, and I even thought Maria Carey was kind of cute. In 1992, I got my SNES, and of those games, as previously mentioned, I played a lot of Final Fantasy IV. I instantly fell in love with the music from that game. My favorite song of all time is The Theme of Love. Some of the other music I liked was the Red Wings theme, Rydia's theme, and Mount Hobbs. Well, that system had some of the best music of all time, rivaling any television theme song at that time. Also, Zelda, Star Fox, and Mega Man X had some awesome music. Later came Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger. I especially loved Cyan's theme, Forever Rachel, Aurea de Mesa Carretera, Shala's theme, and Isla's theme. I don't even remember many television theme songs, except maybe Sonic the Hedgehog and Mega Man, which has such an adrenaline pumping beat. I was super hyped for the Darkwing Duck theme song as well, even before the show came out. In 1995, my family got our first online software, America Online. Well, I'll make a video specifically on that, but first I want to mention its utility in helping me to find music. Back then, there really wasn't any way of collecting music other than to go physically to a record store like Tower Records and buy physical copies of music. But of course, the music I liked best would never be there. So I scoured the internet. First, I downloaded a lot of MIDI files, hundreds of them, in fact. Well, the music I loved lent itself well to that kind of format, despite not being CD quality. Some of the first music I downloaded at near CD quality were S3M files, a kind of precursor to the MP3 format. I felt fairly justified downloading all this music because, first of all, most of it was from video games which I didn't think had their own soundtracks, and second of all, because I owned all the games, so it wasn't like I was stealing the music. The quality was never as good as it was in the games themselves. And then, at the end of 1995 and the beginning of 1996, I started watching Sailor Moon. As I mentioned in my Sailor Moon video, it was the music that helped me to fall in love with the anime series, and anime in general, and sparked a new hunt for music online. So, in 1996, I began to find some of that series' music as well. I was first introduced to MP3 music format and AVI video format at that time. Keep in mind, back then, modems were very slow, and a lot of them were maybe 28K. If we were lucky, we had a 56K modem. So it took a long time to download songs, especially music videos. So I listened first to English songs like My Only Love and Rainy Day Man. I didn't know the cartoon series had a soundtrack at the time, so I felt barely justified downloading these songs. Then I started to discover more music from the series, like Aino Senshi, my favorite lyrical song from that period, and for many years on. Also, Lost Soldier. As I mentioned in my Sailor Moon episode, the music is really what got me interested in the series, and ultimately Japanese culture as a whole. So by 1997, I downloaded so many Sailor Moon MP3s and music videos. By 1997, MP3 became the gold standard of digital music. In 1995, I started watching The Grind, an MTV show devoted to music and dancing, and showcasing mainly women in bikinis on the beach. I was about 15 then, so it should be obvious why I started watching it. Then there were shows like Highlander and Renegade that also sported some groovy intro music. In 1998, I was introduced to a lot of new anime, and consequently started downloading tons more anime songs. Back then, Napster had just come into being, so it became my platform for acquiring new music. Mostly I just downloaded anime songs because, as with Sailor Moon, I didn't think these cartoon series had soundtrack CDs. It wouldn't be until the following year, 1999, when I was introduced to online CD retailers, particularly Anime Nation. Actually, I later found out that they were selling bootleg copies of CDs under the Sonmei label, but probably not even they knew about it. So I bought many of them. I also utilized other peer-to-peer file sharing services like LimeWire and Kazaa. I should also note that I got my first CD player in 1997, and many of my first CDs were of various anime series. 1999 was a particularly troubling year for me, and I needed music to help me cope. It was the year I was in full blown depression after an incident in September 1998. One day, I had just been listening to the radio and I heard a voice so angelic it made me start to cry. And that was when I first discovered her. I had found a Borders bookstore not too far from me via MapQuest and trekked the hour-long way to buy a CD. In 1999, Britney Spears' Baby One More Time became the first music CD I ever bought. I continued to support her music at least until 2005, when my interests began to change. At that time, I began to steer away from Britney and the pop princess scene. Besides the theme of love and Aino Senshi, Born to Make You Happy became one of my favorite songs and even surpassed Aino Senshi as my favorite lyrical song. So many other songs from that CD were also instant favorites. Besides Britney, I was also highly interested in anime music, particularly those songs from Shoujo Kakume Utena, my favorite anime series, Magic Knight Earth, Nurse Angel Rorika, Neon Genesis Evangelion, and His and Her Circumstances. So I bought several of these CDs online as well. I should note that Rimbu Revolution became another one of my favorite songs, and Masami Okui was one of my favorite singers. Some of my other musical influences from Japan at the time were Yoko Ishida, the singer of Aino Senshi, Megumi Hayashibara of Cat Girl Nuku Nuku, Naomi Tamura of Earth, and Yuko Sasaki, who sung the intro to Legend of Himiko. So I began to acquire CDs of these J-pop artists as well. Masami Okui's Chaos is my favorite J-pop song. Then there were also some video games like Bahamut Lagoon, Lufia and the Fortress of Doom, and Air. And of these, I bought the Bahamut Lagoon and Air soundtracks as well. Also, some remixes of the Air soundtrack as well. I think Leah is an excellent singer. I particularly like Tori no Uta and Aozora. So by this time, I was already building a fairly extensive audio library. In 1999, I also decided to join a music service, BMG Music, after I received a mail order special offer in the mail. They gave me 12 free music CDs after I signed up and bought 3 CDs. Such a bargain I could hardly pass up. The service worked on a point system where after I bought a certain number of CDs, they would give me one free. So for every 3 months thereafter, they charged me for 3 CDs and gave one free. The problem with the service was that the products offered were never any good, and the music I wanted was never available for their promotions, so I still had to pay full price for them. I also joined the Columbia House music service, but it wasn't any better. In 2000, I started watching the MTV music rating show Total Request Live. I hadn't included it in my TV episode. So I was made aware of several other artists. I became mostly interested in pop princesses. First, I acquired music from Jessica Simpson. That was followed by Mandy Moore, Christina Aguilera, and Hoku. But, of course, I was mostly devoted to Britney Spears. I also attended a Britney Spears concert in the summer of 2000. I later got involved in music outside of the pop genre. By 2003, I had amassed a massive collection of music, including game soundtracks, anime soundtracks, early J-pop, and American pop music, and even a bit of a few other genres as well. I had about 60 CDs, which I took my favorite songs from, and burned my own compilation CDs, which I often listened to while driving to work. Columbia House I didn't stay with for very long, but I used BMG until about 2003. I also used the music distributor cdnow.com to buy new music. I used Napster to see if I would like music until that service was discontinued in late 2000. So I had found music from Savage Garden, Avril Lavigne, JoJo, and the Black Eyed Peas. I would say that my highest music acquisition period was from roughly 1999 until about 2001. Then I started slowing down on acquiring new music. I had enough. In 2006, I was told about a techno pop duo from Russia, Tattoo, and I added them to my favorite artists. Of that group, the song Stars was my favorite. There were a few others from that time period as well. Lindsay Lohan, Hilary Duff, Natasha Bedingfield, and Ali and AJ. Also in 2006, I started watching the French animation Code Lyoko and fell in love with that theme song as well. From 2007 to 2008, the economy was starting to tank, so I reduced my spending significantly until I lost my job in 2011. I no longer had the funds to invest in media. Up to that point, I had invested thousands of dollars in music alone. I needed to start recouping my losses. By that point, I mostly just listened to music online via YouTube. In 2011, I attended my second concert, called Distant Worlds, of music by my favorite composer, Nobuo Uematsu. Then in 2009, my musical interests began to change dramatically. As I mentioned in previous videos, my connections in Asia, specifically the Philippines, got me interested in K-pop, which was a new movement starting at that time. So I started watching a lot of K-pop music videos. This started with the duo Sistar 19, a subgroup of Sistar, which I also started to like. Then Orange Caramel, a subgroup of After School, which became my favorite K-pop group. And then the floodgates opened. I started listening to Secret, 21, Tiara, Girls' Generation, Girls' Day, and Serial. Through the K-pop record labels Starship Entertainment and Pledis Entertainment, I also learned about and started listening to Boyfriend and New East. At which point I added K-pop to my music collection. Mostly I just downloaded individual songs, but I did buy After School's album, Virgin, in 2012. My favorite K-pop song of all time was After School's Because of You. In 2011, I was introduced to Taiwanese artist Cindy Wang through my correspondence in China. I also discovered another Taiwanese artist, Jolin Tsai, perhaps in 2012. So I downloaded some of their songs and added Taiwanese music to my burgeoning collection. I also discovered the weather reporting related Taiwanese music group of Japanese music. I know, it's very confusing. Weather Girls, and bought their first single. And also another Taiwanese group, Populati. In 2014, I moved to China. But before I moved, I sold off almost all the CDs I owned, including my entire Britney Spears collection. I ripped most of the music to my computer so I wouldn't be without, but I simply didn't have the available space to take my entire music collection with me to China. I also bought an iPod and filled it with music. I only took a handful of music CDs with me to China, including my self-made compilations. While in China, I didn't really acquire any more music. From 2014 to 2015, the K-pop scene was beginning to wane. I bought collections for Cindy Wang and Jolin Tsai while I was in China. When I visited Japan in 2015, I bought more music, including Hikaru Utada, Yoko Ishida, and a Japanese compilation of After School. In 2016, while looking for some material for one of my classes, I came across new music for a Japanese group named Perfume. They had a bit of a techno-pop dance edge to them. Thus began my Japanese music revival. I left China for the first time in 2016, at which point I began to find new Japanese music. Perfume led me to find the Fine Brothers, responsible for reaction videos on YouTube, and helped me to discover baby metal, ushering in my interest in Japanese metal music. I also found Lady Baby, Kari Pamyu Pamyu, and Hatsune Miku. Thanks to the YouTube recommendation algorithm, this led to a whole slew of new Japanese music. I listened to Bandmade, Fate Gear, and Tuesday. So when I moved to Japan in 2017, I bought albums for Fate Gear, Tuesday, Jam Project, a group that included my favorite J-pop artist Masami Okui, and the latest single of The Weather Girls. Then in 2017, I attended my third concert, an underground live event of Fate Gear. In 2016, I started watching Ruby, RWBY, by Monty Ohm and Rooster Teeth, and I really like the music from that series as well. Which brings me to today. Well, that was really all over the place, but music cannot be properly sequenced in a timeline because of all the factors involved, including technology and location. So which song is my favorite? Well, as I said, Nobuo Uematsu's theme of love from Final Fantasy IV will always resonate with me. And in fact, a lot of his music is on my top 10 list as well. Britney Spears is and always will be my favorite singer. Masami Okui is my favorite J-pop artist, and After School is my favorite K-pop group. Well, it was a long process, but I hope you found it interesting. If so, feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you want to help, please support me on my Patreon, link below. Thank you again for your time. As always, it is appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.